Peace be upon you. In just a few hours, one of the largest trade wars in the world will break out. America is declaring a trade war and imposing tariffs on the whole world, which will be activated for Mexico, Canada, and China in the coming hours. In today's episode, we will look at the tariffs that President Donald Trump has imposed. We will look at the Canadian response, the Mexican response, and then we will examine China before concluding with the financial markets and what happened regarding cryptocurrencies. Let's start with the tariffs that President Donald Trump has imposed. More than 10 customs duties were imposed due to the large number of taxes. First, for Mexico, the tariffs will be activated on March 4th, meaning today there will be a 25% tariff on all Mexican products. Also on March 4th, we have a 25% tariff on Canada and only 10% on the oil sector. After the 10% tariffs were activated in February, additional tariffs are now being imposed on China, which will take effect on March 4th, with a 10% increase on all Chinese products. Mexico, Canada, and China are considered America's largest trading partners. We have a 25% tariff on steel and aluminum that will be activated on March 12th, and in March or April 2nd, we will have different products, agricultural materials, semiconductors, and medicines. All of these will be activated on April 2nd. Then we will enter Europe in mid-April with 25% customs duties and the Cooper Emir, many things. Of course, I believe that not all of them will happen because this will cause a collapse and maybe a global recession as a whole. Some reports indicate that just by imposing tariffs on Canada and Mexico, not even China, the average American citizen will incur an additional cost of over $1,250 due to the export manufacturing and the industrial sector being significantly affected by these prices. Also, just yesterday, imagine we get a report on manufacturing industries in America, which gives the impression that American industries are heading into a recession. Employment, as you can see, has dropped significantly, more than 2.7% from 50 to 47. This gives the impression of weakness in employment. And prices, as you can see, have risen from 54 to 62. This indicates that prices are rising, inflation is increasing, and the weakness in demand means we are entering a phase of stagflation. As you can see, prices are witnessing an increase of more than 22. All of this without the tariffs that will be activated today. The Canadian response stated that if this decision is implemented, which President Trump has postponed multiple times, let's see what happens today in the next 24 hours. Canada is responding. And Prime Minister Trudeau says that if you impose these tariffs, we will impose tariffs on over $107 billion worth of American products. This is the significant danger that is coming. Premier Ford is speaking on behalf of the American and Canadian people.
It needs to be adjusted. I'll tell you exactly what will happen there. You know that Minister Trump is resistant to designing the most currencies, and the execution building and less resistance will work in a different way. The House will be closing in a week. The House will be closing in Michigan, which is a red city. The House will be shut down. And among the people in the United States that I love, of course, are the Americans. They will make more money. The site, it will come down faster than the American group. This will be a very surprising crime for places as it is. Almost more citizens. I don't want to overstep, but we will exceed as we've never seen before. You need uranium. You need a higher level of Jordan. I will control a higher level of Jordan for your money in the region. The region, it has to be about the phones, the issue will be an absolute disaster. And all of this is because of one person, and that's President Trump. I've spoken to countless governors, both Republican and Democrat, as well as senators and members of Congress. I love the U.S. I lived there for 20 years. They're all saying this is the craziest thing that someone could ever do.
The first Ford-man Ontario, in interviews on NBC, he speaks very strongly, more strongly than Trudeau, and says that if the 25% customs tax is applied to Canada and President Trump tries to destroy the Canadian economy, We will respond very strongly, and no one will benefit from what is happening. He talks about factories in Michigan starting to close jobs. Layoffs will begin. Inflation will rise significantly. American industries will start to decline, and the Canadian boycott of American products will increase greatly. He even threatened to stop Canadian steel, aluminum, and electricity as he distributes uranium for nuclear power. So he also threatens to stop uranium, which means it will harm them in terms of electricity. Of course, this might be more talk than reality, but look at where the relationship is heading. The dangerous thing that I can't understand is that President Donald Trump is risking something very significant. If we look at American exports to Canada, they reach $350 billion. If we look at American exports to Mexico, they reach $334 billion. And to China, it's almost $140 billion. These are not small numbers, and many companies will be affected. The important thing is that if the Republic imposed a 25% tax and Canada responded, as President Trudeau said, with 100 or 107 billion, then be assured that American products, it has weakened significantly, and you have China that can cause an alternative. So if you look at the previous episode, I talked about the most important thing that Canada can do if it gets out of this predicament. And Mexico is to impose customs duties on China. We're talking about 10-15% to create more competition for some American products. And if Canada and Mexico do this, it will be applied globally. They will pressure the world to impose tariffs on China to start the competition, which will significantly impact the world. If we take Canada as an example, I believe Mexico's situation is extremely difficult, but Canada has options, though all of them are not positive. The first option is to tell America that they will impose tariffs like them, which will weaken American products, and they will start boycotting as they are doing, making non-American products, especially Chinese ones, cheaper for them. There is an alternative, but it will affect Canadian products entering America, so the relationship won't be bad. It might take a year or two until they find an alternative, for example, for Canadian oil regarding uranium and others. All of this will take time. They say that regardless of what happens, the Canadian economy will enter a recession. The second solution is to impose tariffs to avoid American tariffs and impose tariffs on China. But in the end, the Canadian citizen will be affected because we saw almost $54 billion worth of Chinese products entering Canada. And all of these are materials used in our daily lives. So from my perspective, there is no winning in this trade war. That's why the stock markets dropped sharply in the last 24 hours. The Dow Jones fell by 650 points, and people saw a drop of almost 2.7%, which is a huge number. Nvidia dropped by about 9%. But I remind people that President Trump has a habit of blowing things up and then changing course, as I will show you also in digital currencies. But it is known that if we look at Donald Trump and how he operates, you always find the stock markets dropping on Monday when the market opens, like what happened yesterday and on Friday before the market closed. He gives you something that shakes the world, and then on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday he changes course and the markets start to rise again. This is what you could call the trend with President Donald Trump. Does he do this as well? I honestly think it would be crazy if he imposed these tariffs. I believe he will backtrack. He will impose tariffs on China, as I will see, but he will backtrack regarding Canada in a certain way, or start with a simple phase where he only imposes a few 5%. Let's see, but I think you should keep an eye on President Trump's decisions. If the decision is a retreat, then it's an opportunity for people who trade in the markets to jump in quickly, make high profits, and start selling in this market. We have a market that's in a really strange spiral. Of course, what happened is that China immediately responded, and it was a strong response. And she said, yeah, just as you will impose tariffs, we will impose tariffs too, but not as strongly. I mean, I'm telling you, China doesn't want to get into a tariff war, because in the end, China's strength lies in its supply and industries. So what do they benefit from? They have other weapons. But how did they respond to President Trump? I can say our response, they are protecting themselves, Damon. They didn't get too involved. They said, we will do it. 15% on agricultural products and farmers. That's a very large number. The farming sector in America will be significantly affected as well. And restrictions have been placed on more than 10 to 15 companies. Also, he tells you that he means they will impose restrictions and open files on Apple, Nvidia, and investigations into Odin. For them, this is a big talk about what's coming. This gives you a scenario of what is ahead. Of course, the Chinese response wasn't that severe. Let's see if this decision is implemented. I believe President Trump will go ahead with this decision, and we will see the Chinese response that goes beyond just tariffs. In conclusion, I am talking to you about the market situation. As you can see, the markets are closed on Friday, Monday, and Friday. And when the market closes, negative news always comes out to bring down the market. Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday are the market swells in digital currencies. Things have become quite bold. We can say bold, especially after those who didn't see our episode yesterday. I hope you go and watch it. It's very important. I think he started talking about the need to open investigations into what happened with the cryptocurrency markets yesterday. Let's remind people what happened, Race. Trump tweets that the US government should use cryptocurrency reserves, and he specified a group of cryptocurrencies: Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, ADA. But look at the first day it opened. He made this tweet on Sunday at 10 p.m. US time, and it immediately shot up. Look, it didn't even take 24 hours. The market opened on Monday, people started selling, and it went down to its lowest point after almost going up. It could drop again to 15%. Look at this. They call it a phase where they inflate, and then pull the rug out from under regular investors, or a means of transferring wealth from those who have information to those who don't, or what I call them, the sheep. The same thing happened with Ethereum. It inflated with a tweet, then it died again and dropped much more than it was before. Ethereum rose more than 13%, and now it has dropped more than 15%. Solana, which rose by 22%, as you can see, a big blow up like that, and then right away, the market opened on Monday. They sold, and the last chair starts pulling the rug out from under regular investors. This is what we are witnessing in the American markets today. So we need to be very careful. It doesn't mean we should enter a field where information isn't available to investors. So for those who are trading in the markets, be cautious, especially for those who have investments. You also need to have contracts or options, Paka, to protect yourselves from the downturn. I'll talk more about that in the private channel. God willing, I hope you benefited from today's episode that I liked. I know more about investment matters with us. Personal courses of more than 20 hours to build the portfolio. How do we invest? Thank you and goodbye.